Welcome back to ESBR Boxing. Got a very special guest on the channel tonight. A man who's challenging for the British Cruiserweight title this weekend. David Jamieson. David, thanks a million for coming on, mate. How you keeping?
Yeah, very well, mate. How's yourself?
Good, mate. Good. As I said, you just sort of World Cup fever like everyone else, but huge weekend of boxing this weekend as well, and you're obviously a big part of it. You only found out you'd be a big part of it quite recently, as we all did. Obviously, you're challenging Mikael Lawal for the vacant cruiserweight title. So, Mikael, we'll just sort of, in case anyone doesn't know how this sort of came about for yourself, and you can obviously elaborate even further, but Mikael was scheduled to fight Dion Jima for the title. Dion unfortunately had to withdraw and ultimately retire because of an injury, an orbital bone injury. And then it seemed to be quite a quick process from the announcement that Mikael and Dion wouldn't be fighting to yourself being announced as a replacement. Just from your
Yep.
point of view, how did you first hear about this? Was it a relatively pain-free process? Tell us what happened.
Yeah, in boxing terms, it was relatively pain-free in terms of negotiation and stuff like that. But what it was I, I was watching Mikael Lawal's story, and there was a picture of Dion Juma, and it was a sort of this man has pulled out or something like that.
Yeah.
So I get right on it. I took a screenshot. I sent it to my manager, Sam Kynock, and I said, "Look, get on this. It's worth putting the feelers out to see what's happened." Because obviously I've been sort of chasing that rematch with Mikael Lawal. It's always been on the cards for a long time. So literally like 40 minutes past, Sam get back in touch with me. Listen, the fight's there. We've pipped everybody to the post sort of thing. And they're just waiting on the British Boxing Board coming back. And I said, why are they waiting on the British Boxing Board? And they said, no, they're sanctioning it for the British title. So like, geez, I thought it was just a case of they were no, it was just going to be like a last minute replacement, a 10 rounder, an 8 rounder. No, it's for the British. So I mean, obviously, it's a no brainer. It's just go for it. Absolutely. I've been in the gym. I've been living the life. No real weight to lose. So it was like I say, it was just a no brainer.
So it was actually you instigated the process. You didn't get the call from Sky or Boxer. You went out and you actively pursued it when you saw Jima withdrew.
No, I've done the legwork on it.
No, that's brilliant, mate. I was going to ask. You've sort of taken my second question a bit pointless now, but I was going to ask because obviously it's such a big opportunity, a British title fight. In an ideal world for a fight of this magnitude on a platform like Sky, you'd want as
Yeah.
much time to prepare for a fighter as good as Mikael Lawal. You obviously know him well. We'll come on to that again. But was there ever any doubt of maybe thinking, I should wait out here and wait till I'm as good as possible, standing to have such a big fight, or you're confident that you're in good enough
That's
shape and you're a good enough fighter to get it done?
No, listen, that's actually a good question because it brings me on to something that a lot of fighters, like a lot of smaller hall show fighters, will relate to. Like, you need to take your chances in this game. You really do need to take your opportunities when they come, and you need to be ready. There's testament to. I said that in a previous interview of the cheese, but the staying ready and you not have to get ready. That phone can go at any time, and you need to be within weight. You need to have been in the gym. You need to be doing the rounds. You need to be doing the road work so that you're ready to capitalise on that opportunity. If you go away and you blow up and stuff like that, there would just have been no chance. I wouldn't even have looked at it. I wouldn't even have get in touch with Sam if you were. What's the point? Oh, it's a good payday, and you go in and take a doing. That's not what I'm about. You're not there to make up the numbers. So it's a quick 10 grand. No, 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 no. We're going down here to win this British title.
100%, mate. I think a lot of fighters, as you say, would do well to take a leaf out of your book. As I touched on earlier, you mentioned you fought Mikael back in 2019. We'll sort of get on to the specifics of that fight shortly, but the 3 and a bit years have passed since then. We obviously had everything with COVID, no boxing for a while, and certainly no small hall boxing for a long time. Just tell us for a bit, if you don't mind, sort of how has your career been since that first win with Mikael 2019? You've obviously not let the loss dissuade you. I think you were 5-0 at the time. It was obviously your first defeat. I can set a
Yeah.
lot of fires back. But how's your career been progressing since that fight back in 2019, especially with the lockdowns and the lack of boxing for so long?
See, to be honest, I mean the whole scenario with the Ultimate Boxer tournament when that came up back in the day, that was again, funnily enough, it was like 10 days' notice again. But the loss to Mikael Lawal, there was actually no negatives. It wasn't like there was a loss. My stock rose massively, especially like where I'm from, South Lanarkshire, Glasgow, up here in Scotland. It's get your face out there. You put in a right good account of yourself. There was no shame in it. So it wasn't like, I've lost in the amateurs before and you come away with your tail between your legs and your head's down a wee bit. There was none of that. I felt tremendous off the back of the Ultimate Boxer. And then it looked like we were going to capitalise on that exposure and a bit of momentum. And it's just professional boxing, small hall show boxing, fights are on, fights are off. And then the whole COVID scenario came along and it was just like nightmare. But I think what kept me chapping through the COVID thing and a lot of other fighters is it wasn't just boxing. It didn't matter what profession you were in the world. Everybody was affected by this. Everybody's life was put on hold. So it wasn't like, oh, poor me, I'm a professional fighter. I mean, like, the guy down the road, Joe, who's a gardener, he wasn't cutting grass for 2 years. You know what I mean? It was, so you just had to make the best of a bad situation, I'm afraid. And just keep the mind right, keep training through it, and look what's happening. What was happening right off the back of it. So it's just testament to staying ready, keeping your mind right. And you never know what can happen.
100%. You mentioned there the first fight with Mikael. It was obviously in that Ultimate Boxer Series tournament, which we've seen sort of rejuvenated recently, so fans might be sort of more familiar with the format. But it's a very unique format. It's very different to what you'll be in there and then Saturday night. For those who don't know, you've up the potential to have 3 fights in night, 3 rounds, 3 3-minute rounds in each of them. So it's hell for leather. It's almost a bit more like the amateur days, I'd imagine, if you're ever over an amateur tournament where you're fighting multiple times. Obviously, as you say, you gave a very good account to yourself against Mikael that night. Very close in the scorecards. I think potentially the closest run thing he's had as a professional to date. Do you think this longer format and the fact that you're not going in to fight him fatigued will suit you more? And sorry, not Saturday night, Sunday night, I should say.
Oh no, yeah, definitely. When all game plans given too much away. It's no secret. Mikael's as a physical specimen, he's tremendous. Lots of muscle there. That requires a lot of oxygen to move it and keep it sustained through. We're fighting for 36 minutes here. I'm a come forward pressure fighter. I always have been since the amateurs. I've got a good engine. And even when the engine goes, I've got the heart and the balls to back it up, and I'll keep coming forward. So I reckon that the distance is going to be a massive factor here.
You mentioned there your engine. It'll be your first time going the 12 rounds. If it does go the 12, it'll be the first time Mikael will have done the same. Is that where you think your biggest advantage lies over Mikael? Or are there other things you think you can exploit in there?
Yeah, I think there's a massive thing. Like I've had a decent amateur pedigree, won a couple of national titles at amateur level. Came through like a good old school setup when you're the amateur, a proper school setup. I don't believe Mikael, had any experience to that level as an amateur. And I think that I've been doing this for 16 years. I've been doing it since I was, just a wee boy. So it's that stuff you can't. There's no substitute for experience in boxing. Stuff like that.
And you'll be going in there in the eyes of some people, in the eyes of the bookmakers, as a potential underdog. Obviously, Mikael, the Sky and boxer fighter, that'll factor into people's thinking too. That's obviously something you're not put off by if you're willing to travel down from Glasgow in 10 days notice or whatever it is into the champion's back garden.
No,
not the champion, the home fighter, I should say, not the champion.
Yeah, no, but that's it. I mean, it's great. Any fighter that will tell you that gets to that level, I mean, there's no pressure. I'm expected just to go down here and just to be another one of these guys on his record that just gets caught with that big, massive right hand. And on he goes and he wins the Lonsdale belt. It doesn't work like that. Mikael's actually been thrown to the lions here by his own people. I know he's the big flagship boxer fighter, and he's been hand fed well picked opponents to this point. Dion Juma was a serious threat. I had Dion to beat him, to be honest. But when Dion's pulled out, they can't get another Benoit Huber or another, one of these guys. They need somebody legitimate, and they've got me in. I don't think for a second they would have picked me if they had the choice. but the show must go on. So in my eyes, I think the boxer folk have felt the pressure with the show maybe collapsing. They can't feed him another international journeyman, and here's me popped in at last minute's notice, and it's all mine to take.
It's interesting. I never even thought of it because obviously the opponent would have to be of a certain standard to get sanctioned for that Lonsdale title, and the fact it's co-main, the fans, the TV audience aren't going to be happy if it's just him bowling someone over in 2 or 3 rounds, as you say. So I never actually thought of it. You say it.
No, that's it. There's a wee bit of leverage here. There's a bit of an angle. The show must go on. I mean, there's a lot of money being invested here. They've even rejigged the times so that it works around the World Cup and all that sort of stuff. So the show's got to go on.
You mentioned there in your last answer that it's obviously for the British title, that famous Lord Lonsdale belt. It's a belt that many fighters, across the UK have got aspirations of. It's very historic. It's one of the nicest looking belts in boxing. Is it something that's always been on your radar to potentially fight for and win the Lord Lonsdale belt?
If you watch any of my previous interviews with different platforms and things, it's something that's come up in every interview, and I've not meant that. It tears out me without me even knowing it's in my subconscious. Dreams of being a world champion and things like that. No, it's always been for me since getting into it. It's about winning a Lonsdale belt. That was what it was all about for me. Win a British title. Don't get me wrong. You can maybe press on after that onto different things, and there's obviously the money scenario. You push into international titles and world titles. There's a lot more money in the pot. But this is the boyhood dream for me. I can't tell you how much it means to us.
It's interesting you touched on there. So it's a sort of more traditional route that you would see fighters go down. For yourself, Scottish. People would talk about it many more going area level, then English, then British, European, Commonwealth, etc., etc. We've seen sort of in recent years that traditional route has sort of been put sort of to the back burner, and you'll often see fighters take these as usually fights for international belts and swerve that in the hope of sort of maybe getting a cheap world title shot, is what critics would say of it. Just what are your thoughts on that? That you, as you've mentioned there, I can even tell by listening to you that you're genuine and that British title still holds serious value to you, but whereas some fighters and promoters mainly are sort of putting it to one side in pursuit of these international titles, the hope of getting a world title shot.
That's another quality question. You obviously know your boxing here, so yes, because in the interest of the promoters, if they're building up a Mikael Lawal or whatever, I know obviously he's now fighting for the British, but say you're building up this superstar. The British title, I mean, some of the best fights to watch back have been for the British title. You've got 2 guys in there, it's a proper 50-50 and guys are going at it. The easier route is to get a hold of a WBA Intercontinental number. You can bring in an international level journeyman. You can bowl him over. All of a sudden, you've got a top 50 ranking in the world, and then there's routes to a world title. Why would you put your man that's wrapped in cotton wool who could go that route? Why would you throw him at the Lions in there with a proper 50-50 for a British title when it's risk reward? It's the business side of boxing, isn't it? So there's maybe too much risk for little reward. But for the guys that have been doing it, who know their boxing, you know yourself, you know how highly coveted the Lonsdale belt is. I mean, to pick something like that up, I mean, that's what you talk about, the defending it 3 times. And imagine having one of them in your mantelpiece and you own that. I mean, you pay me all the money in the world, man. It's if I can defend this out and I get to own that, I mean, that's what it's all about.
Well, I've still got a 5-a-side participation trophy up on my mantelpiece, so I don't even think about getting a Lord Lonsdale title. Just last one for me, David, and I'll let you go because it's getting late. So you're traveling down a long way. As I said, it's going to be in London. It's going to be very much Mikael Lawal territory. Are you expecting to bring many fans down with you? Have you got many of your mates making the trip down from Scotland?
Believe it or not, yeah, we've got actually a bit of travelling support here. The pressure was off. Obviously, it's none of the selling ticket scenario and things like that. But it was actually the interest that I've got without pushing it or anything like that after the announcements was actually notable enough for me to get in touch with management and stuff like that and say, look, what's the deal here? Can I get a ticket allocation and can I get a percentage? So The guy at the boxer set me up my own ticket link. No, it's not tickets in hand, running about dropping tickets off and all that rubbish. They just sent me my own link through, and I could just send that all out to my pals. So we've got a reasonable travelling support. What I'll say is they'll be loud enough. That wee group of Scots in the middle of that sea, all the folk for London, you'll hear them. That's for sure.
I'm sure it'll be a wise night in London on Sunday if you want it.
Yes.
David, thanks so much for coming on. Pleasure chatting to you. Genuinely wish you all the best on Sunday night, and safe travels down, and hope it all goes well for you, mate.
A gentle, mate. Listen, thanks for speaking to us. Brilliant.